Audio rolling, camera 1 rolling, audio rolling, 1, 2 rolling, okay. Video 2, a new generation is birthed.
Welcome back to your second session on your journey to how to create a healthy multi-generational work environment. In the first session we spoke briefly just about this world that we're living in, this disruptive change that is ahead of us, and we made some significant statements as into how do we need to look at this world that we are facing, and I remember I mentioned about the value of creating a fourth dimensional view.
And let me just get that fourth dimensional view. So if I understand correctly, if we take the Earth and the Moon and they're in relationship to one another, and so the Moon is moving around the Earth,
yes,
and then the Earth is moving around the Sun with the Moon.
Yeah.
But together the Sun, the Moon and the Earth, and that's the fourth dimensional view, is they moving together.
There's a collective outcome because of whatever they are.
So it's not just looking at one generation, the Moon, and another generation, the Earth, and how they treat each other and move, but this whole holistic view of how we as a community, all the generations, moving together in the solar system of life.
There's an outcome of the
Okay.
So it's easy as a generation to look at other generations, but I am an Xer. So if someone talks about generations, I will look at it from a Generation X perspective and say, well, this is who I am, this is my worldview, this is understanding as to how I experience life and how I experience this world. And then I hear about millennials and I put them kind of in a little box and I look at them as millennials. So it's an example that I've used in the first session of, I'm standing still, but they are the ones that are moving up and down.
So the outcome of this video series is not just to be aware and be attentive to all these generations in the workplace, but how we can work together.
The collectiveness and how to bring forward. What is the outcome? Because if I keep looking at, and if you just take where we are now, and I think in most companies, we try to say, we're intergenerational, because we've got all kinds of different generations in the work environment, and we can even identify them. Oh, those guys are the millennials, those are the boomers, these are the Xers, and we even have some new Gen Zs that came in, and that's where they are. But actually what we're seeing is it's a multi-generational space. Where we need to head towards is turning that multi-generational space to an intergenerational space, where we not just understand one another as in our differences, but also our uniquenesses and similarities, and saying, how do we utilize that for the greater good? And I know we're going to talk about it somewhere in one of the other sessions around the entire MTP, Massive Transformative Purpose. Where are we heading towards collectively? And do we like what we currently see? Or what is it that we need to change to go and eventually get there?
What really comes out to me, or what really stands out to me when it comes to workplace relationships and dealing with conflict per se, I do a lot of mediation across Africa, where you have these different generations or even different genders or cultures that have conflict. And when you work with two individuals, the reason and the source of their conflict is often because they focus on their differences. And that's how we categorize people into groups. They are different because they have different skin, they have different whatever, age, exposure to technology, or whatever categorizes them as a certain group. So we focus on those differences and we get offended by that because it's not like us. People generally link with people who are more like them. So when you go into a conflict situation, the element that diffuses that conflict quickly and easily is bringing commonality. So instead of focusing on your differences, what do you have in common? What is that basic common ground that two humans share? It's humanity. It's regard, it's recognition of the other human being, probably just trying to do their job.
As we referred to in the first session, shared values, is that maybe one of the solutions?
Absolutely, and maybe just a little bit of kindness.
But as I understand it, the blessing is the curse as well. So the moment I want to diversify in terms of genders and cultures and generations, I'm also making it more complex. And that dictates a higher emotional intelligence, because when I get to work, now I have to navigate all these, okay, how should I treat this person, how should I say this? It absolutely dictates high emotional intelligence and adaptability as well.
And I think what adds to this is that we now have this new generation that comes in, and I want to talk in this session a little bit about this new generation that's birthed. Now, I know we all know a little bit more about the millennials, and as we recently heard, the millennials are the most well-educated generation, but it's also the most researched generation out there. And so a lot of information, a lot of focus has gone around understanding the millennials. And almost in a disruptive way, unexpectedly, we had the Gen Z that started to come into the work environment. And this generation is even more different than the millennials.
For me, it feels more like the Gen Zs is millennials quadrat.
Well,
on steroids. On technological steroids.
And I think we need to be aware of this generation, and we need to take note of who this generation is. You know, on YouTube there's a great video. It's a cell phone company, a network company that produced a video. I think it was MTS, and they produced this video as into this internet-ready generation. But what I like about this video, and it illustrates this video through this baby that is birthed, and we're going to put the link on for you to go and check it out. And but it's about this baby that's birthed and suddenly just take control of his or her own environment, and everyone else is just kind of, what in the world just happened here? And so that video clip is about 40-50 seconds long, maybe a minute. But at the end, the baby is walking out of the theatre room, and everyone just stands in awe, like, where did this come from? And it's almost that kind of feeling that I'm getting in the workspace, is that we see this, and we are aware that this next generation is coming in. Because remember that woman was 9 months in labour, or not in labour, but she was pregnant for 9 months. And everyone kind of knew that was about to happen. The baby was about to be birthed. So we are aware about this new generation that is coming in, but we're not ready for that. We haven't prepared. We kind of have no understanding of what do we do now, and how do we engage.
We created that baby, didn't we?
No, we did.
I mean, that baby doesn't come out of the womb with a tablet.
Yeah.
It grabs the dad's tablet and uses the devices that we have created.
And we actually give him the tablet, you know. It's like we stretch it out, we gave him the tablet. And
I just need a breather. The tablet's very effective. For 5 minutes, I just want to drink my coffee.
Yeah, exactly. We created this generation.
Yeah. And so this generation is going to do things way differently. I think the outcomes is the same. We still want to see the outcome where everyone leaves the theatre room and this baby grow up. But it's like this methodology, the way it gets done. That's what's so much different from what we used to. And that brings me almost a theory of complex adaptive systems, of understanding that, you know, we often focus so much on the journey, but we forget about the purpose. What is it that we would like to see at the end of the day? And for everyone, this journey might be different. I love to use this example of a glass, is that I want to create a glass because the purpose of the glass is to contain fluids. But then I want to duplicate or create a process that everyone needs to follow that exact same process, so that all the glasses will look the same at the end of the day. And it's like we're seeing in this video, the generation is saying that we agree with the purpose, but what the end product looks like might be different. It might not be a glass, it might be a mug or a cup, but it will still have the same purpose, and the process of getting there will be different. And so we need to look at this new generation, the Gen Zs that are about to step into a workspace, and there's already research taking place about the generation following them, the Alpha generation, but it's about how do we understand these generations better in saying how do we get alongside these generations.
Well, I agree with Justine in terms of the shared values. So, for instance, if we want to understand, we have to listen.
Yeah.
So, if we have this agreement of respect and vulnerability and have these crucial conversations, I think that in itself is already a big step forward. I like someone once said, in this age of artificial intelligence and algorithms, let the robots do what they can do good, and let humans do what we do very good, and that's to be humane. What more? To listen and have respect and kindness. I'm very excited about this new age because we're going to have a chance to be more human again.
But again, it's how do we take it? Because we can easily look at this new phase that we're walking into and say, oh, it's so different. I don't like what's going to happen with it, and I want to keep more of the same that I'm comfortable with. But it's about being adaptable. And as we said in the first session and explained in the beginning of the session, it's about how do I look at all of this from a fourth dimensional view in saying, take a moment in my own space, acknowledging who I am, my experiences, my understanding, but also acknowledge what's happening there and how these generations are different, and then say, for the greater good as into where I go as a person, as an organization, how do we collectively get there? And what is it that we want to achieve at the end of the day?
One of the things we work with a lot as a growth architect is Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky's research on System 1 and System 2 thinking. So the theory is that we are born with 142 biases that's ingrained in us. So one of them is called declinism. So we always see the future as more negative towards the past. So there's always a zombie apocalypse on the way, and the good old days. But the fact is, we're living in the most prosperous, safest times in humanity, and that's why you always, doesn't matter which generation you work with, they already have these 142 biases that you also have to navigate and to understand. And that's why I always will refer back to understanding myself, the people around me. That will already help in navigating this complexity and the multi-generational workplace.
So I think a big exam question that faces many organizations and line managers and leaders is, how do I meet the needs of this generation? And not just this generation, but all the generations within the workspace. So, I've done a lot of study on leadership per se, but not just that, culturally, and what do we need to focus on and bring together to ensure that we pass on experience that we have as older generations, but also hone in on that special new generation, self-sufficient, self-reliant, education-hungry environment, and bring it together, and then ultimately at the end succeed and prosper.
And I think leadership plays a key role in understanding, what kind of leadership is needed to not just guide this next generation, but actually to come alongside this next generation and helping them to be the best generation they can be. And that obviously raises a lot of questions as to what's the future leadership going to look like. And I like some of the theories like situational leadership, where in this situation you act in a certain way because of your understanding of who your people are and the crowd that you're involved in. But it's also about understanding as a leader in the space that we live in with different generations. So it's leading from a place of understanding who these generations are, but also where we can collectively go, and then lead from that space.
I think I like what Justine says, it's the old and the young. I know you've got a mantra, the wisdom of the old and the passion and the energy of the young. So that dictates the collaborative leadership style. But then in that, the servant leadership is almost a given. It's both generations, all the multi-dimensional generational situations, serving one another and serving this fourth dimensional view that you're talking about, of this collaborative journey that we are being responsible to the next generation.
So I want to close the session by encouraging you that when we look at these different generations, it's understanding the value that each generation is bringing to the table, acknowledging that yes, there is a new generation stepping into the workspace, and there will be another generation following them as well. And it's about how do I acknowledge this generation, come alongside us into where is this generation heading towards, And watch the video clip, the link that we sent to you. Watch that video clip, and the first time you watch a video, I almost want to challenge you, just watch it and laugh at it. It's quite funny, and you will enjoy it. But then the second time, look at it from a perspective of understanding, wow, where is this baby going? What is this baby doing? How is this baby behaving? But also take note of those others in the room, because it's almost like what we're experiencing in the workspace today, is that we see this generation coming in, and we all stand in awe. We're like, wow, where is this generation going? What is this generation doing? So this new generation is birthed, and it's an exciting time that's ahead of us, and we all can play a role in helping us to where we're going to go.